Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, the Labour Party HQ has been vandalised by a group that are calling for an immediate arms embargo when it comes to Israel. Should there be one or not? Also, what's going on with this weird obsession with daubing paint over everything just because you disagree with something? Where's that come from? What's it all about? And speaking about strange things, what on earth's been going on while I've been on my holidays? I speak, of course, of the bizarre situation when it comes to William Wragg. You'll all be familiar with this, I am sure. Well, now Scotland Yard are investigating what's been going on, but I want to know, what do you think is going on in our society? Why are so many grown adults now seemingly so keen to connect to strangers in this way, sending pictures of their bits and pieces and all the rest of it? Very odd, if you ask me, but what does it say about our morals as a society? Also, speaking about the Labour Party case, Starmer says that the focus on Angela Rayner's house is a smear campaign. So let me ask you, is he right? And do you care about that story or not? I also want to ask you, has Brexit made Britain a lower status nation? That's what one former MP thinks. Do you agree with him? Also, do you think that the working class have been betrayed by politicians? That is a claim that's been made today. And guess what, everybody? We like it when we create new things. We've got a brand new way for you to get in touch with us.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Yes, indeed. We'll have all of that and more before 7 o'clock. But before we do, let's cross live to Polly Middlehurst for tonight's latest news headlines.
Michelle, thank you and good evening to you. Well, the top story tonight from the GB newsroom is that the Metropolitan Police in London has identified human remains found in a park in South London as those of 38-year-old Sarah Mayhew. The discovery was made in New Addington, Croydon, on Tuesday, the 2nd of April. A man and a woman have since been arrested on suspicion of murder. They remain in police custody, and police are saying they were both known to Sarah. They're not looking for anyone else in connection with her death. And police also confirmed today that the man wanted in connection with the murder of a woman in Bradford in Yorkshire was known to them. 25-year-old Habiba Massoum came to Britain on a student visa. He's from the Oldham area and is described as an Asian man of slim build. He was last seen wearing a jacket with 3 large horizontal stripes. He's wanted after 27-year-old Kulsum Akhtar was fatally stabbed as she pushed her baby in a pram in broad daylight in a busy Bradford shopping centre on Saturday. Police now are saying they want to speak to any taxi drivers who may have driven the suspect to Bradford Moor Park. He is likely, we understand, to have paid in cash. People are also being warned not to approach him. Assistant Chief Constable Damien Miller told GB News a short time ago patrols in the area have been increased.
There seems to be no confirmed sightings of Massoum. However, I would like to thank again everyone who has been in touch. We have had teams of officers working through all the contacts that we've received and following up on all lines of inquiries. There are significant resources conducting CCTV and house-to-house inquiries, and we also have local Bradford officers carrying out increased patrols in the area, which I hope will be of some reassurance to residents.
And the killers of 23-year-old Cody Fisher have been jailed for life today, with a minimum term to serve of 26 and 25 years, respectively. The semi-professional footballer was stabbed and killed during a fight on the dance floor of a Birmingham nightclub on Boxing Day in 2022. A jury at Birmingham Crown Court found 23-year-old Remy Gordon and 22-year-old Cammy Carpenter guilty of his murder. Speaking outside court today, Cody Fisher's mum, Tracy, said, "You never expect your child to be murdered."
The sentence passed is somewhat a blessing that they are no longer on our streets, and hopefully goes somewhat to try and eradicate this awful epidemic that is ruining so many lives. Sadly, not all have been brought to account, but they know who they are. For us as a family, Cody will still not come home, and we will forever live in the shadow of his senseless murder.
Well, also in the news today, 11 people have been arrested following a pro-Palestinian protest at the Labour Party's headquarters. The group, known as Youth Demand, sprayed both the inside and the outside of the building in bright red paint, the protesters claiming that the party are complicit in what they've described as the murder of Palestinians in Israel's conflict with the Hamas terror group. And this comes after Sir Keir Starmer reiterated his call just this morning for the government to publish its advice on whether Israel is violating international humanitarian law in Gaza. Meanwhile, the Labour leader says the NHS is on its knees and he's promised to modernise it if his party wins the next election. It's hoped that a plan to digitise the Red Book of health records that parents receive when a baby is born will boost vaccination rates and improve access to healthcare. It would see patients receive automatic notifications for appointments and health information via the NHS app instead. Sir Keir Starmer says the plan will make the NHS fit for the future.
Everybody has that Red Book knows that it can get lost, it can get forgotten, all the details have to be re-entered, it wastes a huge amount of time, and this is an example of the sort of reform that we want in the NHS. Obviously, everybody will know the NHS is absolutely on its knees. If we're elected into government, if we're privileged enough to come into government, we'll have to pick the NHS up, put it on its feet, but we also need to make it fit for the future, and that's where the reform comes in.
Sir Keir Starmer. Now, millions of people, tens of millions in fact, particularly across the United States, will be looking skyward tonight for what's expected to be the most viewed total eclipse ever. If you're watching on TV, you can see these live pictures coming to us from Mexico. The eclipse hasn't started yet, but crowds clearly gathering in anticipation. There are cloudy conditions, though, on the horizon. They might eclipse the excitement itself for some. It's a different story, though, in Canada, where clear skies are set to bring near-perfect viewing conditions. Here in the UK, some of us will get a small glimpse of a partial eclipse in the west and north, including in Belfast, Glasgow and Liverpool, from just before 8 o'clock tonight. We'll keep an eye on that for you. Those are the latest stories. Do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen right now or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks for that, Polly. I'm Michelle Dewbs and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got the columnist for the Mail on Sunday, Peter Hitchens, and the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire. Good evening to both of you. I was going to say, you know the drill on this programme, don't you? It's not just about us three, it is about you guys at home as well. And you know what? Modern technology, don't you just love it? Because tonight, for the first time on the show, actually, we can now connect. So we can, yes, not just over email or anything like that. Oh, no, we can connect online. You can send your views, you can post your comments and all the rest of it. Keep them nice, keep them clean, please. And I'll try and read some of them out. gbnews.com is where you go to with a slash your say at the end of that. You can connect to that, and I'll be chatting to you during the break, though, because I try and pay attention to these two when they're talking as well. But join that conversation that way. Of course, you can tweet or X me at GB News as well. Welcome aboard, however you choose to join the conversation tonight. You're very, very welcome indeed. So have you seen, then, the latest ridiculousness? I've only been on holiday for a week. I mean, where do you even begin? So many stories that we could have covered tonight. But did you see the pictures, the imagery of the Labour headquarters? A group of youth, so they call themselves, have gone along with red paint and daubed all over the Labour Party headquarters. They're from a group called Youth Demand, and of course you'll be familiar with the fact what perhaps it's all about, but they want an arms embargo now. They want the UK weapons to stop being sold to Israel. I mean, there's so much I want to get into on this. Where this weird obsession has come from about daubing things with paint because you're in a mood. It's the kind of thing my 3-year-old child would do. Chuck paint at something because he's angry. What's going on, do you think?
It's self-righteousness. It's people who think that they're so good that the only thing they can do is let everybody else know how good they are. I'm really good, I think this. And you should think it too. And to show how good I am, I'm going to go and spray some paint on something. That's all it is. Tom Lehrer, the great satirical singer, wrote a song about this many years ago called The Folk Song Army. We are the Folk Song Army. Every one of us cares. We're against poverty, war and injustice, unlike the rest of you squares. And basically it is it is a declaration by people that they are better than us, and they think that they don't know anything. And I remember being myself on the protesting left many, many years ago. I didn't know anything, and I didn't do that. I did various other foolish things, but that's what they do. And there isn't really very much else to say about it.
Well, we'll come on to their messaging, and I'll come on to in a second what it is that they're calling for. But of course, this has all been triggered by the situation in Gaza with Israel, etc. Where are you on this? Let's think about the protesting methods at the first point.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. Last week I saw somebody on GBNews, a Just Stop Oil person, saying, well, if we didn't do things like this, we wouldn't get publicity.
It's very true.
And what do we have? They daub the Labour Party in paint, and we're talking about them. I mean, would we be talking about them otherwise? And that's what they... I mean, I do agree with Peter. I mean, it's a way to get publicity. I don't think it's a way to persuade people, and it's incredibly boring, and it's just going to go on and on and on with whatever people feel like doing. But, yeah, I mean, it's the problem is it works.
Yeah, and I mean, regular viewers to this programme, you will know that I have quite a preference that we try not to give moronic acts such as this the oxygen of publicity, because you're quite right, they do it because they want to be talked about. But I just thought this whole notion, because the situation with Israel and Gaza, we've had so many things now being interfered with. So, of course, we saw the situation in Parliament when it came to who should vote and how they should vote, and democracy being tampered with because of that issue. You've got all the protests on the streets, all the rest of it. This is an issue that people really... In fact, I'll turn to you on this, because you said when I was protesting, when I was a bit younger, I didn't know much, and you saying that these people don't know much. But actually...
A lot younger, actually.
These people would push back and say that what they feel is very passionate. They're seeing the situation in Gaza. They want the killing there to stop, and they feel very passionate about that.
Well, what do they think the rest of us think? There's many, many people, including me, who are greatly distressed by what's going on in Gaza, but I don't see any future in painting, in spray painting the headquarters of a political party. And it doesn't actually achieve anything. This is all about the people who are doing it. I do think that if people are convicted for this sort of crime, then an awful lot of effort should be taken in making sure that they do something fitting. That is to say, they should be made to clean it up themselves.
Certainly, of course.
And they could find out how long it takes to clean it up. And so in some cases, they might understand the distress that they've caused to other people by doing it. There was a great novel by the clever novelist Simon Raven, in which a protester in the 60s destroyed a Cambridge college lawn. And the provost of the college was mostly distressed about the terrible state into which this put the gardener, who'd spent decades getting this lawn perfect and was in tears to see his work. Now, obviously, the Labour Party headquarters isn't a beautiful Cambridge lawn, but a lot of people go through into that building. They care about it.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, Peter, but I'm looking...
We should make people who do this kind of thing, once they're convicted, instead of fining them or binding them over or whatever we do, we should actually say, no, clean it up. Find out how long it takes to clean up. And the same, I have to say, should be done to the people who spray paint my train.
As Peter is talking, and that's why I'm trying to rudely interrupt, because I'm just showing you on the screen, if you're watching telly, just so you can actually see. If that was my son, and I mean, he's kind of proudly waving his fire extinguisher around, I think he'd look a bit of a pillock. I wouldn't be happy when my kid got home. But the response there, Charlotte, what they're saying... Charlotte? Who's Charlotte? You can tell I've been on holiday. Scarlett, sorry. What they're saying... I know, I'm back. I didn't have much sleep. My flight was delayed because of that storm last night, in my defence. Anyway, one of these protesters is saying, and this is a direct quote, there's never been a safer time for Labour to be bold. Instead, they are behaving like the biggest cowards imaginable. Do you think that Labour are being cowardly on this issue?
No. I think they could be bolder. I think to call them cowardly when actually they're saying we want to see the evidence, we want to see whether it's legal or not to sell arms. I mean, what they're trying to be actually is grown up. They're trying to show that they can run a government rather than be a party of protest. I mean, it's quite important that they come from the Jeremy Corbyn era to the Keir Starmer era, from the protest era to the government era. I don't think they're being cowardly. I don't always agree with them, and on this one, I don't. I mean, I think that you don't have to know the legal advice to have seen what's going on.
So what do you think they should do then? Because you said they could be bolder. How?
Well, I think that they should call for an arms embargo. I just think they should say we can't go on selling arms to an army that is behaving like this, that clearly targeted three cars with aid workers in it last week. And I mean, what's interesting is I saw an interview with a former Israeli soldier from Breaking the Silence. This is an Israeli group of former soldiers who actually talk about what it's really like. And he said, when I was in the army, we were told, if in doubt, don't shoot. That's now changed. If in doubt, shoot. And he said that's the problem. And you know, we know that well over 30,000 people have been killed, and a lot of them are women and children.
Well, Labour has got itself into a considerable mess because Keir Starmer has done a lot of authority grabbing by this supposed attack on the anti-Semitism of the Corbynites. And this has endeared him to some parts of the Labour Party who are more pro-Israel than others. If he now departs from that, he'll lose them. He'll have an open split. On the other hand, he has an awful lot of members now who are Muslims or who are highly sympathetic to the Arab cause, who really do think that the moment has come to speak out. It's very, very difficult to decide what to do, but then if you don't want difficult decisions, don't be in politics. And he is, I think, he is shirking it. I'm not advising him which decision he should take. I have my own views on it, which are mine, and I wouldn't dream of voting for the Labour Party. But he really does need to demonstrate, if he wants to be Prime Minister, that he has the capacity to choose between two positions, even if doing so makes him unpopular with one side. And I think he does lack the bottle to do that, and I think it's increasingly evident that he's just simply trying to avoid it.
Is he? Does he like that bottle?
No, what he's saying is, I want to see the evidence. I want to see... He's a lawyer, right? I want to see if the legal opinion is that we shouldn't be selling arms because it's illegal. That's what he's saying. I think that you can make a decision without knowing that. But I do understand that he's saying, I want to see the evidence.
Scarlett, it's all... They're not sitting around in the Knesset in Jerusalem saying, what does Keir Starmer think about what we should do?
No, Peter,
what the
I'm
Labour
not saying
Party
that.
says isn't going to make any difference to what happens. It's going to make a difference to the Labour Party. And it's not very difficult to work out whether you're in favour of bombarding Gaza or not. I am a supporter of Israel for almost as long as I can remember, against all kinds of stupid criticism, but I think the bombardment of Gaza is both crazy and wrong. I find no difficulty in saying so, whatever, and I don't see how anybody actually, regarding what's going on, can say anything else. Keir Starmer won't say this because he has other political liabilities, which he's piled up in the course of becoming and remaining leader of the Labour Party. He's afraid to do it. He won't take a decision. And this is a very good idea. It gives us all a very good indication of what sort of Prime Minister he would be if he became Prime Minister. Not a very good one.
Is he a bottler?
No, he's not. He's not a bottler. He's trying to make a serious decision. No, the Knesset really don't care what I'm not saying that.
So what's he waiting for?
What's
he waiting for?
Because it's very important that Labour stops being a party of protest. That's how he sees it. That's how he sees the decision, and the decision he sees as a lawyer, he sees as a legal one. I happen to disagree with him. I happen to agree with you. Is that on October the 7th, I said what's going to happen is they're going to kill thousands of Palestinians and Hamas will have won, because that's what Hamas always wanted. It was mad. We can go back to that. What Keir is trying to do is he's trying to be more measured about it.
Well, that's as may be, but the truth is that the Labour Party is, in fact, a party of protest and has its roots in all kinds of protest and resistance. It's not an establishment party, and if you want to lead it, you have to learn how to deal with the fact that large numbers of people will have radical opinions on this and many other subjects. And you have to decide which opinion you take. You can't sit there and say, well, I'm waiting for the evidence. What is the evidence he's actually waiting for here?
Well, he's made it clear. He wants to know what the legal opinion is of whether it is legal or not
He knows that they're not going to tell him.
He doesn't.
He says that because he'd be devastated if the government came out and said, "OK, Keir, here's our opinion," because that would leave him completely naked. He'd then have to make a decision. As long as he can hide behind the government's own secrecy, he's safe.
I really mind you telling me what the Labour Party is.
Why?
When you're not a member,
I was.
you don't even vote.
I was for some years.
You were for some years.
And I know what goes on in it.
It is not a party of protest, as you know, as you have written many times about a Labour government. The Blair government was not a government of protest, right? It was a government, and Keir wants to run a government, right? But I think it's very simple what he's looking for, and the question is whether one needs to wait for it or not. And I feel that one doesn't.
And how long do you think he'd be willing to wait then? 6 months for this evidence to be presented?
He wants it now. I mean, that's what he keeps saying. That's what he keeps saying. We need. The government has the evidence. We want it now.
Well, I say if his phone rings tonight and it's Downing Street saying, "Keir, we're giving you the government decision," he'll be absolutely mortified.
Do you think he would be? You guys at home,
He doesn't
your
want them.
thoughts? Do you think that Keir Starmer is a bottler? Do you think he's using this request for the detail as a way of creating his own position so that he's got confidence in it, or as a way of just biding time and desperately hoping to avoid requiring to be made to do a decision? Your thoughts on that? I want you to get in touch with me tonight. As I said, I'll be interacting with you in the break. gbnews.com/yourviews is how you can reach me after the break. I want to ask you, do you care about this Angela Rayner stuff? Keir Starmer said it's a smear against her. Is it or not? And also, what on earth is going on with this willy rag stuff? Have you seen it? This honey trap stuff? What on earth does all this kind of stuff say about our morals as a society? Tell me and I'll see you in 2.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Offline and overlooked. That's what Age UK say millions of British pensioners are. Why? Because they cannot or won't access the internet. It's leading to digital exclusion. So the charity's campaigning for public services like banks, utilities and even the NHS to maintain a more human approach.
Everything's online. People assume you've got a smartphone with a mobile number and an email, and without that you don't exist in this world anymore. We've got to try and get the government to see that it's so important to make people feel that they belong, because there's a feeling that the older generation just feel that they're forgotten, they're in the way, and we already know that anyway. It's just another reason for them to feel that they're not wanted. They'll just accept it and they'll say, well, that's it, I can't do it anymore, and that's it, whereas other people would be really kicking and screaming. So we need to be the voice for older people.
Despite digital technology playing an increasing role in our lives, around 1 in 5 over 65s in the UK don't use the internet. Thornycroft Centre in Pontefract, West Yorkshire provides a space for this age group to socialise and get help to go online.
I'm not that good with mobiles, so when you mention anything about online, I ain't a clue what you're talking about.
The closure of thousands of banks is also detrimental to the older generation.
A lot of our members what come, they tend to use cash. They don't like to use bank cards. I think a lot of it's trust or the lack of knowledge. They don't understand how it works. I think they're very vulnerable as well with online. It's really important that they're aware how to use it and how to use it safely.
So, in an online era, it's still crucial for many to have an offline option.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight alongside the columnist for the Mail on Sunday, Peter Hitchens, and the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire. I've been reading some of your comments on our website, gbnews.com/yoursay. You've just been in touch there. You're saying, why, basically, do we have to have this opinionated woman on? She is so wrong. I was trying to work out who it is that you're referring to. Me, Scarlett, or maybe even Peter, if he decides to identify as a woman these days. You need to be more specific. But anyway, whoever this woman is that's very opinionated, I think it'd be a bit boring, actually, if whichever woman was just sitting here without an opinion.
I know, the thought of you without an opinion, Michelle.
Is this a cookery show?
Indeed.
James, just isn't.
James, GB News member, hello. He says Starmer would change his views on a whim if it would make him more popular. And Carol, you tee up my next segment very nicely because you say, please, can you all stop banging on about Angela Rayner? I've heard it all. It's the same. Now, this is very interesting because, of course, you'll be familiar with this row all about Angela Rayner. Did she live in this house or that house or the other house or whatever? Was she supposed to have paid capital gains tax when she sold this house? Well, now Keir Starmer, he's been speaking out about it again today. Listen to what he says.
Angela Rayner's been asked no end of questions about this. She's answered them all. She said she's very happy to answer any further questions from the police or from any of the authorities. I don't need to see the legal advice. My team has seen it. But I do know this, that if you're waiting more than 24 hours for A&E, you're much more interested in why the government is not absolutely laser-focused on that, which is what they should be, than chasing this smear against Angela Rayner and how much time she spent with her husband over 10 years ago.
Well, there you go. My question to you at home is, do you care about this Angela Rayner thing? And also, do you think it is a smear, as Keir Starmer then perhaps seems to suggest it is a smear campaign to distract and deflect from some of the goings-on of the Tories, which, don't worry, I'll be coming on to in a second. Scarlett, your thoughts?
I think it's politics. I mean, we're coming up for an election. Everybody's going for each other. And everybody's fair game. I mean, what's interesting is that Lord Ashcroft writes a whole biography of Angela Rayner, and that's the only thing he can find that possibly nobody knows that she owes £1,500 in capital gains tax. And, you know, it's between, her and HMRC, the tax people, are sorting it out. I mean, yeah, I think frankly, that in politics, most things are fair game. And
I think she's been trying to pull a fast one, or not?
No, look, this happened, as he said, over 10 years ago. She wasn't an MP, she wasn't anything.
That doesn't matter. If this was something to do with Boris Johnson and it was to do with, like, years ago, and I was sitting here saying to you, whatever it was, but Scarlett, it was years ago, and you would be having none of it.
No. I mean, I haven't gone on and on about all the things that Boris has done wrong over the years. Look, what I've said is it's fair game, right? It's fair game that they investigate. They're looking,
I'm asking you, do you think she's pulling a fast one?
No, I don't think she's pulling a fast one, but what I think is that the Conservatives and the Tory press are desperate for a scalp, and they think they found one.
Peter?
Well, it is true that Angela Rayner herself has been pretty hot on the alleged misdoings of other people. She was going on about the finances of Rishi Sunak's wife. She said of one Tory MP that she should publish her tax returns. I think there were one or two other episodes where she's been very hot on others, saying they should come clean on these things, which puts her in a position where where she's asked to come clean, it's only reasonable that she should. I think Angela Rayner is a good thing. I think there should be more people in politics on both sides like her who've actually lived. I mean, for goodness sake, most MPs have never been inside a council house, let alone had a public row about one. So it would be much more useful if there were more of them who were like her. So I'm not against her. But I do think that in this case, she's in a bit of trouble, and she'd be in a lot less trouble if she'd come clean about it. I'm also interested in Sir Keir Starmer, the great former Director of Public Prosecutions, who's always being terribly stern about how many people he prosecuted when he was in that office, being so relaxed about this, about prosecuting, as it were, or just even pursuing a problem with his own deputy. I think he's probably worried about losing her. Again, it's politics. If by any chance this were to cause her to leave, he'd then be faced with an election for deputy leader, which is the last thing he needs on top of all the other stuff he's got. But I think there's a sort of case to answer here, and I think the stuff which my newspaper, the Mail on Sunday, published on Sunday, and Glenn Owen, my colleague, is a very diligent and careful reporter, and the stuff that he published showed these pictures of that gave away really the soft furnishings in Angela Rayner's house, gave away the fact that she appeared to have been living where she said she hadn't been. Well, I think it requires a bit more than dismissal, but it also doesn't require the Supreme Court to assemble.
Well, you know what? I'll give you guys the final say on that one. My crucial question, though, is do you actually care about any of this or not? Tell me your thoughts, please. Also, while I was on holiday, you would have seen this story. Sometimes, just when you think you've seen it all and life and politics cannot get much weirder, it does. It happens. It gets even stranger than it was before. Of course, I'm talking about what is now being known as the Westminster honey trap. William Wragg. I mean, you couldn't pick some of these names, could you? I'll leave the abbreviations of his names to your own imagination, but I mean, some of these names associated with some of these scandals are they're comedy right there, aren't they? Anyway, you know what's gone on by now. Over the weekend, it emerged now that so many more people apparently have been targeted by these few different accounts. There's even been rumours that during the Lib Dem conference a few years back, apparently some of this stuff was going on there. Now, I mean, I think the entire thing is absolutely bizarre. I think that this MP, William Wragg, should have lost the whip. I think what he's done by providing these details, the phone numbers and all the rest of it, of colleagues and all the rest of it to potential blackmailers, if that's not a sackable offence, I mean, would you get away with that in your job? I don't think so. But anyway, if that's not a sackable offence, I don't know what is. But notwithstanding that, what do you think about society more broadly? Because there seems to be this kind of clamour to get on some of these casual apps, to send pictures of your bits and pieces to other people. Where's our morals gone?
Well, it's quite funny if you're as old as I am and you were in the 60s, because this really was an extremely staid and Puritan society in which anybody who's shown the newspapers of the last couple of weeks, say, in 1965, would have just goggled at them and said, what on earth are they talking about? How can anybody be doing these things? There are so many things that they would have found bizarre that it's impossible almost to imagine such a society existed, but it did. And all kinds of people came along. I remember it, particularly with pornography. And they said, well, if we relax the rules on pornography, don't just publish Lady Chatterley's Lover, but let everybody read it, but let's have pornography everywhere. The staid, puritanical, repressed British people will cure themselves of their sexual problems, and we'll be a lovely, happy society where everybody's in love with each other and behaves very well, as in supposedly Scandinavia. And it turned out to be the most total bilge. What's happened as a result of the release of pornography and the general collapse of what used to be moral standards on this kind of thing is not a liberation, but a seedy, disreputable and rather miserable world of the sort we now see disclosed. I mean, just imagine the lives of the people involved. It's just so pathetic. And this has been the result of 50 or 60 years of supposed liberation. That's what I think about it. I've had enough of that kind of liberation myself. I'd like a bit of repression.
Yeah, I think it's just so odd. What must go through your head as a public domain figure? I mean, it's bad enough if you're a random person, but if you're on a public... I mean, if you're a public servant or if you're on a public domain... To send bits of yourself to other people, what goes through your head? How do you think that story is going to end?
I find it unbelievable that a member of Parliament, supposed to be, you know, somebody who wants to govern the country, can get an anonymous, somebody he doesn't know, and send him a picture of himself naked, or maybe only a part of him naked, and
it's enough.
And then
his hand.
What? Yes, probably not his hand. And then realising only afterwards. I mean, it's not as though this is the first time we've been talking about this sort of stuff. I mean, this has been going on, unfortunately, I mean, I'm completely with you, for some years, and yet he does it. And then again, I'm completely with you on this. And then he dobs in his mates to cover himself up. And Jeremy Hunt says that he's brave. He's a coward.
He said it was courageous.
Courageous!
This is one of the things. See, this is what I mean about the level that we operate in within this society. How has it got to the point when you've chucked your colleagues under the bus to a blackmailer, you've kind of behaved in a way that I would argue is not really becoming of a decent public servant? How are you then courageous when you talk about it? Where has that level come from?
Well, again, we are in the area of proportion here, aren't we? As we are with some of the other things we've discussed this evening. Is it really that big? Do we need to make a federal case out of it? Is this man some kind of huge, catastrophic wrongdoer, or is he just a common or garden twit? And I tend towards the twit.
If someone gave your number...
I can't get angry about it.
But if someone gave your number, or one of your loved ones' numbers, or whatever, to this blackmailer, how would you feel about that?
I'd be cheesed off. But it's not, as I say, let's not assemble the Supreme Court or MI5.
Actually, the people,
it just isn't big enough.
The people are really, really angry. I mean, Conservative MPs, some of whose numbers have been given out, and others. I mean, Andrew Pearce wrote a piece. I think it was the Mail on Saturday rather than your particular paper, but he wrote a whole piece about how angry people were, that they could not believe that this man was being applauded instead of saying that... And also, we've always worried about MPs being prone to blackmail, right? And this guy, you know, the smallest thing, I mean, this was quite a minor thing to not go to the whip and say, I was really stupid, I sent a dick pic to somebody I didn't know.
Scarlett, goodness gracious me, you make me hair curl. Sorry about said language when you're having your tea.
Wash your mouth.
I sent a inappropriate.
You sound a little bit too familiar with some of these phrases and the goings on.
Well, it is quite often how... It is quite interesting how often I end up talking about it on GB News, because they are awful, actually. But you just don't understand what went through his head. Is I would rather give this person, who might be anybody, I mean, might be a foreign power, might be a malevolent person, well, clearly a malevolent person, a load of phone numbers, rather than go to the Chief Whip and say, I've been really stupid.
I can tell you now, Dame Andrew Jenkins, she's one of those people that's spoken out and all the rest of it. She wasn't happy about it at all. She said that her colleagues' actions were unforgivable. And I mean, a lot of people are divided on this one. Like I said, he's been called courageous. Is it a brave act? I think it's absolutely pathetic.
Well, isn't that just trying to shut it down the way other people shut down the Angela?
I'll tell you what does shut things down. The whole mental health card. It's really fascinating to me how when somebody's done something wrong, have you ever noticed this? When someone's done something wrong, one of the first things that slips out of their mouth is how they've got mental health problems. I mean, does your mental health problems mean that you're now no longer accountable for your actions? Not in my book. Does it mean that for you? Tell me. Get in touch with me all the usual ways. Also, as well, there is, I was going to sing you a song, but I won't. There is a solar eclipse tonight. If you're sitting there going, oh, I'm so excited, I want to see it all, don't you worry about that, because we'll be having live clips and footage of that as it all progresses. Look at that, what a treat, isn't it? Are you into that? Is that your kind of thing? Peter's making some wonderful noises alongside me. I don't know if that's pure pleasure or I don't know what it is, quite frankly.
I'd love to see an eclipse. I think that'd be a wonderful thing.
Oh, well, I think I'm going to give Peter a few moments to catch himself, compose himself and have a little look at that.
No, we don't.
I'll see you back in two.
We don't see these things in this country.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. Most of us will see some heavy rain and some strong winds as we go through tonight into tomorrow in association with a relatively deep area of low pressure. Now, this feature has been named by Meteo France because it's going to bring some impactful weather there. In the UK, it's not so stormy, but nonetheless, there'll be some strong winds, particularly around coastal parts, and also a spell of heavy rain feeding in across parts of northern England and across Scotland as we go through the early hours of Tuesday. Because of the blustery, wet and cloudy weather, temperatures for many of us aren't going to drop much. Most places holding up in the mid to high single figures. So a relatively mild start tomorrow morning, but quite a cloudy and a wet one and a windy start for most of us. The heaviest rain will be across eastern parts of Scotland, could cause some problems, particularly on the roads. Also some heavy rain for northern England, but all of this does gradually clear away towards the northeast with something a bit drier following in behind, but also a scattering of showers. Now, temperatures will be down several degrees compared to today, highs of just 13, perhaps even 14 Celsius towards the southeast. A chilly but bright start for many of us on Wednesday. However, the fine weather doesn't last. More wet weather is going to push its way in from the west, and we're going to see winds strengthening again. And again, that rain could cause some problems, particularly over southwestern parts of Scotland. At the moment, Thursday looks like a drier day for many of us, and that drier theme looks like it will continue into Friday across the south before more rain arrives further north.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Julian Brett. In Hampshire, the M27 eastbound has a lane blocked by an accident. That's from junction 4 for the M3 to junction 5 for Southampton Airport. A23, the southbound side in Sayers Common, is closed. That's because a car has caught fire at the Sayers Common turnoff. The exit slip to the B2118 closed there as well. In Kent, the clockwise M25 has a lane blocked by a broken down car at junction 1A for Lakeside and Tilbury, and long delays clockwise on the Buckinghamshire stretch after an accident just before junction 16 for the M40. In Essex, the A12 London Road is blocked in both directions because of a police investigation. That's at junction 25 for Marks Tay, causing long delays. There's more in 30 minutes.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7. Peter Hitchens and Scarlett Maguire remain alongside me. Lots of you divided on our new website chat. Some of you saying actually that Keir Starmer should indeed call out for the information and to get this information published and then make the decisions from there. Others of you saying just move on, quite frankly. Patricia there says, Michelle, yes, we should push to get this paperwork, just as Labour would do day after day after day if it was on the other foot. Susan there says, I don't agree with Angela Rayner's politics or her speeches, but this is all a witch hunt. Can we concentrate on things that are important to everyday people? I don't care, she says, about her home life. Well, do you? Keep your thoughts coming in. Now, we all know that we are in Brexit Britain now. The former Labour MP David Miliband, he said that being Brexit Britain has made Britain a lower status country. What do you think to that? Peter Hitchens?
I think it might have made Mr Miliband a lower status politician among the sort of people he likes to consort with. But I don't think it's made any difference. Britain was already a pretty low status country before Brexit. I don't think it's made any great difference to our standing. Most people outside this country don't think much about it or of it. We have a hugely inflated idea of how important we are. And it can't be bad if we begin to shake this off and realise how we're not and how we need to fix the things that we don't fix. But it's daft to say that leaving the European Union reduced our status.
Is it daft?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, I think when we were in the EU, we were incredibly influential in a very large bloc we held the ring between Germany and France. Neither of them wanted us to leave because they have so many disagreements and they're both incredibly big, and we could come in. So we had incredible influence, and we don't have it now. And the other thing that we had with the States was that we were the bridge between Europe and America, and we're not that. So I agree with Peter that we're now just, a small country on the outside.
Medium-sized.
Medium-sized country on the outside. But I think before Brexit we were much...
Just ask you, Scarlett, give me an instance of this influence that we had over France and Germany.
Well, we had influence over the EU. I mean, one of the things is that we had a deal in the EU that was incredibly good. We weren't in the euro, right? We were allowed to be in the EU and not be in the euro.
Well, so is Poland.
They've now changed the rules.
It is the case. There are quite a lot of countries which are in the EU which don't have the euro. It's not unique to us.
No,
but I just want an instance of... No, that's individual treatment. I want an instance of this influence over the direction of the EU and its domination by France and Germany, which we supposedly had. Because I could never see any sign of it at all, any more than I could ever see any sign of this special relationship between Britain and the United States. When I lived in Washington, D.C., I hunted for the special relationship. I went out with packs of dogs looking for it. There was no evidence of it at all. It does not exist. It is a fantasy.
What's your example?
I didn't say there was a special relationship.
You said we were a bridge.
I said we were a bridge.
As if the Americans had no other way of contacting the European Union except through London. Come on.
Oh, come on. No, it wasn't. It was very good that we were in the EU and we were influential. And now that we're out of it, it doesn't really matter.
You can't give me any examples of this influence that we supposedly had, because we didn't have any. They had influence over us, to be sure, but we didn't have any.
Actually, they didn't have influence over us.
Well, go on then. We've got about another 30 seconds. Come up with an example.
The whole thing around before Ukraine about who was going to be in the EU, what the rules were. I mean, we were right in the middle of trying to rewrite stuff, and then we pulled out. I mean, it was that easy.
You can't come up with anything because there isn't anything. It's a fantasy.
It is
not. We never were.
We always were. We were really. You talk to France and Germany.
I'm going to give her a few extra minutes in the break to come up with this fabulous example, everyone. I'm confident in her. I'm confident she's going to do it. We'll see you in 2, and she'll come back with that example. Don't go anywhere.
I should have one.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
One more story in. Milton Keynes, absolute chaos in the city. 300-odd youths arrested or at least involved in a
stampede.
A stampede. Yeah, what's been going on?
A stampede through the...
there we are.
This is the video. So this is a stampede through a shopping centre in Milton Keynes. I think, Amy, you live there, don't you? You live nearby.
For those on radio, we can see literally hundreds, scores of kids.
I think there are about 300 kids.
Are they in school uniform?
Yeah,
quite.
This is as they've broken up from school, presumably.
Security tried to intervene. They've been accused of being heavy-handed. But I think this speaks to the fact that the landscape of youth services has just been decimated, and there's literally nothing for kids.
So hang on, whoa. You think that this has happened because social services have been diluted?
Youth services.
This is because there's no police around, there's no oversight, there's no deterrent, and 300 kids think that they can run through a shopping centre, frightening shoppers out of their lives.
Going to a shopping
Amy,
centre.
sorry, my kids would not be behaving like that because there's no ping pong available at the local.
Aren't your kids like age 4 and 5? These are teenagers, and our teenagers are headed into a world where there are no leisure services.
It's got nothing to do with crime.
If
we up the ante on basketball, it's not going to stop kids being stabbed on the street.
What creates antisocial behaviour is having nothing to do.
It's lack of discipline in the home, lack of discipline in the home, and lack of policing on the streets, and a judiciary and a penal system that is utterly liberal.
You're going right to the end of the line. What about the preventative measures?
But what about the people that these people affect by running through a shopping centre and stampeding? When there's mothers with kids in prams frightened out of their lives, and we're worried about the social services aspect
I'm talking about
that's perhaps led to it.
You're talking about stick, right?
Yeah. So how long does your solution take to resolve it? Mine takes about 30 seconds. More police, bang them up. Yours...
Russell, should parents be fined?
More police, bang them up.
Absolutely. And the kids should be taken to task.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Dewberry, keeping you company till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got the columnist for the Mail on Sunday, Peter Hitchens, and the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire. She's still thinking about her example of how on earth the UK used to have loads of influence and it's not got that anymore. I'm going to give her a few more minutes.
Phone a friend.
No.
Productive in the break.
No, I have not got an example, but if you think about it, right, if you're in the room, if you're in the room, you can influence it. If you're outside the room, you can't. There's no question about that, right?
Have you never been in a room where you can't influence anything because you're so completely outvoted that nobody cares what you think?
We did not get outvoted, right? I mean, we
did.
pretend that with this country that we were always up against Europe. Actually, our negotiators were really good.
Well, look, in the interest of fairness and all the rest of it, I'll let the conversation rumble on. So if at any point before we finish the show you come up with this idea of the influence that we used to have, you can feel free to chip in. But before we get to the end of the show, look at this, everybody. Tonight, I can show you this wonderful image, actually. Total eclipse of the heart. If it all goes wrong, I want to be a singer. What is this?
Maybe.
What is this I am showing to you? Well, tonight, oh, there you go, look. You've got Peter Hitchens. Tonight, everybody, what a treat for us all, because it is a total eclipse there. Look at it. This is the image I'm showing to you live from Mexico. I'm not sure actually what the view will be from the UK. I mean, I was showing you this image before, Peter. You said it was quite lovely.
Well, I think lovely is not the word. It's exciting and astonishing because it's a reversal of the normal state of things. If the sun disappears from the sky, I think it's the most astonishing thing. Most of us will go through our entire lives and never see it.
I was going to say the next one that's going to happen in Britain is going to be in 2090, and I have a feeling that you and I aren't going to be around.
I think it's very possible that, despite our wonderful NHS, I may not be around for that.
Well, there you go. Yeah, 57 years away, actually, will be the next full one we get to see of that. What is this? I think am I changing the image? No, you can have a look at this. Let's have a look at this. Apparently, 7:52 p.m. BST, that's when the partial eclipse will be. You can see a bit of it in Glasgow, apparently. Tiny little slice of it, I think, maybe in Edinburgh.
You won't see that.
No, you will not. As I said, this is not the image from Edinburgh or anything like that right now. This is the image from Mexico. Is this your kind of thing, Scarlett?
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in Italy when there was a partial eclipse. I think over here there was a complete eclipse, but I was in the wrong country, and it was really exciting, actually. I mean, Peter's right. It's something that hardly ever happens, and you think, wow.
I'll tell you something else that hardly ever happens. I've only got about 2 minutes, so you've got to be very brief. Access to the royal palaces, but now for the price is some of about 100 quid, 150 if you want some tea and all the rest of it. You can get into Balmoral Palace now. Good idea or not?
Well, Charles likes making money, doesn't it? And he doesn't like Balmoral, so he lets people go. £100 to visit, an extra 50 if you want tea. Quite expensive tea.
Yeah, it'd be nice tea. I think you can get in for a bit cheaper if you don't want a guided tour. I think you can get much cheaper tickets. Is it a good idea opening them up in this way, Peter?
Well, I'm sure it is, yes. I mean, I've got nothing against it. I remember going to Oslo and seeing the Royal Palace in the centre there with its gardens and no fence or wall around them, and thinking what a wonderful thing it would be if Buckingham Palace were the same. I do think that the royal family is too much hidden behind walls. I don't think they should lose their privacy. I'm not saying Clarence House, where the King actually lives, should be thrown open, or the private apartments in Windsor. But there's no reason why we shouldn't see these things. Whether Balmoral is the thing, I don't know. It's supposed to be all been designed by Prince Albert, of whom it was said he had a lot of taste, all of it bad.
Lots of turrets.
Would you go at home? Tell me, is that how you would spend your money? I think I've got about a minute or so left, so I'm going to hand the floor over to Scarlett Maguire. If you've just tuned in, Scarlett was agreeing with the fact that Brexit has made us a lower status nation. She was saying that before Brexit, we had all this power and influence. So Peter asked for an example. Scarlett.
I did. What I said was that beforehand, that France and Germany France and Germany are the two big ones in Europe, and beforehand we were in there with them, and we could influence what the European Commission did. We could influence the way Europe. We are now outside it. We're outside one of the three big blocs, which are Russia, China, the States, the four big blocs in Europe. And so we're a medium-sized country.
Well, I'll let you guys decide whether or not she answered that question. Ab, you're lovely on Twitter. You tell me not to give up my day job because you don't think I'd heard much singing. You've never heard me on a karaoke machine with the music. I tell you, it's a different league. Someone here, James, says, I don't think you'll read this out. You make a comment about how well Scarlett and Peter are getting on. Perhaps you two could catch up after the show. Apparently, you're both hilarious and fantastic to watch and listen to. And James has very much enjoyed the interesting entertainment, the debate tonight. Lots of people saying that those people that spray-painted Labour should be arrested. Well, I can tell you, some of them have. Good is what I say to that. Anyway, look, it's all I've got time for. Scarlett, thank you. Peter, thank you. Thank you at home. Farage up next night.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather brought to you by the Met Office. Most of us will see some heavy rain and some strong winds as we go through tonight into tomorrow in association with a relatively deep area of low pressure. Now, this feature has been named by Meteo France because it's going to bring some impactful weather there. In the UK, it's not so stormy, but nonetheless, there'll be some strong winds, particularly around coastal parts, and also a spell of heavy rain feeding in across parts of northern England and across Scotland as we go through the early hours of Tuesday. Because of the blustery, wet and cloudy weather, temperatures for many of us aren't going to drop much. Most places holding up in the mid to high single figures. So a relatively mild start tomorrow morning, but quite a cloudy and a wet one and a windy start for most of us. The heaviest rain will be across eastern parts of Scotland, could cause some problems, particularly on the roads. Also some heavy rain for northern England, but all of this does gradually clear away towards the northeast with something a bit drier following in behind, but also a scattering of showers. Now, temperatures will be down several degrees compared to today, highs of just 13, perhaps even 14 Celsius towards the southeast. A chilly but bright start for many of us on Wednesday. However, the fine weather doesn't last. More wet weather is going to push its way in from the west, and we're going to see winds strengthening again. And again, that rain could cause some problems, particularly over southwestern parts of Scotland. At the moment, Thursday looks like a drier day for many of us, and that drier theme looks like it will continue into Friday across the south before more rain arrives further north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Julian Brett. In Hampshire, the eastbound M27, now recovery work continues after an accident at junction 4 for the M3. The entry slip road there remains partially blocked. In Sayers Common, West Sussex, we've got heavy delays on the A23 southbound after a car caught fire at the Sayers Common turnoff. On the Kent stretch of the clockwise M25, a lane is blocked by a broken down car. That's at junction 1A for Lakeside and Tilbury. Long delays for the